and welcome to a brand new episode of Jon the PM podcast, where we believe that managing projects is not just a job, but a way of life. I'm your host, Jon McGlothian, and if you're tuning in for the very first time, I'm thrilled to have you here. For those of you who know me from my YouTube channel, Jon the PM, it's great to have you join me on this journey. Managing projects is a subject that has not only transformed my career, but also enriched my personal life in countless ways. So I'm excited to share my insights, experiences, and some valuable tools and techniques that can supercharge your journey. In today's episode, we're going to talk a little bit about Agile. Agile, both the methodology as well as the mindset. All right. I love this as an example. Let's say, some time ago, or now, let's say you have some kids, some children, all right? And you, as the guardian, you want to build them the Taj Mahal playground sets. That is your vision. Now, if somebody were to ask me to deliver that vision, it's going to take several years. The reason why is because I'm not the most handy person with, nails and things like that. I'm pretty good at writing checks, but not very good at actually doing the work in that regards. But if I were asked to build this, it would take, a long time. In fact, I would almost say it would take so long that the kids would have outgrown it by that time. Okay. So that's not going to work. So what I can do is build minimal business increments, sometimes called minimum viable products. There is a distinction between the two, but for now, let's just put them all in the same bucket. In other words, what is the smallest amount of requirements that the customer will accept and be happy with, even though they may want some future enhancements? Just kind of think about it that way. So, the first stage is, hey, I can build this. Now, the kids can use it. And knowing nothing else, they'd probably be perfectly happy, okay, on that side. So, boom, they can use it. Frequent delivery. Let's say that as time goes on, I can build a sled. Again, I said a slide. Again, they can kind of come back and they can use this and they'd be perfectly happy on those regards, and everybody's good to go. On the third one, I can, enhance the little jungle gym here with the climbing wall and, and all kinds of stuff, associated with it. Again, they will be perfectly happy and life will go on. You know what? I may never get to this product vision. Okay. And it could happen for several reasons. One is, quite frankly, in this particular example, the client, meaning the children, might have outgrown the whole need for it, or I could have just simply ran out of money, one of those cases. But what's beautiful about doing it this way is that they can use it, meaning the children can use it as they're going through the product or project. Okay. So that's one of the values of actually doing it in the Agile methodology way. And that's in contrast to waterfall or traditional. If we were to do this in a traditional way, I would do all this planning and make one delivery at the end. All right, does that kind of resonate as far as how your work may lend itself?
Yes, you stopped sharing your screen, by the way. But with an event, right, I would consider that to be traditional, because the final deliverable is the event. But maybe something like with the annual report, maybe there's a certain section that our clients want to send to a donor first before having the final report done. So there's maybe, a 2-page spread inside that they can send along to the donor, but it may take a few more months to get the full complete report done. So that would be the Agile.
As you were, I had to reflect on what you said. And the reason why was because initially you said annual report. And so my head kind of went to, well, that's going to have to be traditional. And the reason why you have to have the entire report done before you can publish. But that is in a traditional Fortune 500 type company with 10Ks and 10Qs. But what you said was, and what listeners might not really understand, is that you do a tremendous amount of work with nonprofits.
Mm-hmm.
And in that arena, it's true that they have to have an annual report. That's true. But they don't necessarily have to wait until the finished product. They can send out snippets, if you want to call it that. Draft. I don't know if you want to call it drafts.
Or they can send out a portion of it.
Yeah.
So if
They
it's 16 pages, they may just send out 4 pages of it.
Oh,
that's what I'm saying.
So they're doing it. They're actually doing it incrementally in that case. Okay, so we did not necessarily, we haven't rehearsed this at all. Okay, but that is absolutely that was wow. Here, let me share my screen. You'll see why I got all excited here on a second. Okay. There we go. You can see my screen again. There are basically 4 types of project life cycles. All right. There's the predictive, traditional, waterfall. They all mean the same. And that's what you are kind of talking about with like an event. You do a whole bunch of planning, deliver everything at the end. Then there's iterative and incremental. What you described was an incremental delivery, in that regards. Iterative is where you have where it's an approach that allows for feedback for unfinished work to improve it, remodify that work. Okay, on that side. So that's why I kind of got excited when you were kind of describing the incremental piece. Let me dive a little bit more into this iterative and incremental. Let me dive into that just a little bit more to add some clarity to that. The spousal relationships. I discovered or realized about a year or so ago that my wife and I clean differently. Okay. Yeah. Yes, that would be Lisa's mother. We clean differently. I clean iteratively. My wife cleans incrementally. We both get to the same point, but we get there using different paths. So what's the difference? In an iterative cleaning fashion, I might look at our home and let's say the kitchen or something of that nature, and I may clear off the dishes and then, go and do something else. And then maybe come back and wash the dishes and then do something else. And then come back and put up the dishes and then something else. And then go and clean the floor, that kind of things. Okay. On those areas. So I'm kind of doing it iteratively. And I'm actually getting to various stopping points all the way through on those pieces, on those areas. So it's not like done, but it's kind of like close enough, at least from a male's perspective, stereotype. What will happen if my wife cleans is that she'll clear off the kitchen table. Now, when the kitchen table's clear, I mean, it is spotless. There's everything is done, on those. Now, dishes haven't been washed and all that, but everything is done. Then she'll go over to the dishes. All the dishes will be done. In other words, they'll be washed, they'll be dried, and they'll be put up in their proper place. And then maybe, wiping down the counters and all that kind of stuff. When she's done with it, it is completely done. And then the floor, it's, spotless, in those areas. In other words, she's kind of doing it incrementally on those areas. Now, what Agile does is that it combines the both. It is both iteratively and incremental. And when you're doing your annual report, and she's doing it in a nonprofit type situation, type scenario. She's having, let's say it's I think she said 16 pages or something, or 20 pages. She can have 2 of it done, send it out to the donors. I'm sure they'll get some feedback, so she can kind of readjust. But at the same time, the donors can start donating money, against it, which, kind of gets that revenue portion in it on those areas. So that's kind of the key differences in that spot. And at least I have to say that was really a good example. I wish we had planned that, but that was really a great way to look at it. on those areas. So on a does that kind of resonate? Just a matter of fact.
It does.
Okay, awesome. All right, so when to use which one? All right, and this little chart is just just a just a guide like everything else. On the PMP exam, Elise, on the PMP exam, okay. If they say construction, just think waterfall traditional. Okay, just think that. Okay. If they say software, technology, something words to that effect, just think agile on those areas. Okay. Now, out in the field, you can mix them up, switch them up, and all this other kind of stuff. All right. On those areas. But on a test situation, just kind of look at it from that. The reason why that is important on a test is that if they kind of start talking traditional, construction, in your mind, you should start thinking traditional style, which means that you have your traditional work breakdown structure, your traditional scope, which is your scope, your traditional Gantt chart, and so forth. If they start saying technology and agile or trying to give you hints towards that, then it's more like customer intimacy, the servant leadership, more along those lines. Okay. So it kind of helps you to put yourself in the right mindset on those areas. This is a pretty good chart. Again, like everything else, don't take it to the nth degree. But if you know what the scope is, I mean, like when you look at your project and you know what the scope is and well in advance and so forth, you're probably good just to use Waterfall. Now, if you're not really clear on what the end objective is, and sometimes the customer, in all fairness to the customer, they may not actually know what the end result is until they actually see it. If you're in that kind of a situation, you probably need to be using Agile. Your team, if you have a team that are full of specialists, in other words, they really just do one job very, very well. Okay, and they don't like to switch roles. You're probably better off using Waterfall. Okay, just because of the team makeup. Now, if you have a team and they have, each of the team members have 2 or 3 skill sets and they can flip around areas, roles fairly easily, then Agile is probably more appropriate, in those regards. Your customer does have a huge vote in this. If your customer is not able to be engaged throughout the entire project for whatever reason, I would almost always just revert back to Waterfall or traditional. That's just me. Okay. The reason why is because Agile really kind of demands that the customer is willing and able to be engaged throughout the entire project. Now, here's where the dichotomy comes in. The customer may want to be engaged, but they may not be able to. Maybe they're deployed, they're on travel. It could be, any number of reasons in there. And if you're in that situation, I would almost revert back to tradition. Prioritization. If this is an interesting one. I have not yet ever met a customer when you ask them this question, they always say everything's important. But here's the question. Mr. or Miss Customer, which one of these features are the most important ones? Inevitably, they'll always say, all of them. Okay. Now, if that's truly the case where everything needs to be done, then you probably need to do it by Waterfall. If it's a case where you can everybody wants everything done, but there are some features that can be delivered sooner than later, then I would probably look at Agile, in that case. And then, of course, budget, it's estimated based on defined scope. That assumes you actually know what your scope is. And budget in Agile is usually based on the team, in that regards. So those are just some times of, considerations of when you would use Agile, on those pieces. Again, within the context of the PMP exam, they'll probably just kind of stay, in that format. Just to take a quick um, test here, not a test, but check in. How do you feel relative to the material?
Um, I feel like I understand Agile, where I do get a little, Agile is both incremental and iterative.
Hmm.
Separating incremental and iterative is still a little fuzzy to me. Incremental is where you have parts done that can be used.
Well, not necessarily. Incremental is that when something went, let's say that you're doing like a construction project,
Hmm.
okay, and you have a big building. And you could complete the building incrementally, meaning that you do one floor at a time. And when you're finished with that floor, you're completely done, or one room. Maybe I should have used like decorating. You're
Hmm.
decorating your home. Okay, that's probably a better example. Let's assume that you are redecorating your home. It's a 2 stories, four bedroom, three bath, that kind of a house. Okay. There's a couple of ways you can do it. One way is to do it incrementally. In other words, I'm going to start in the garage. I'm going to unload the entire garage, paint the floors, put in all those fancy drawers and cabinets and things. Then I'm going to go into the family room and I'm going to make it spectacular. Then I'm going to go into the kitchen, make it spectacular, and so forth. So each room when I'm done is completely done. That's incremental.
Hmm.
Iteratively, if I was redecorating the home, I might look at it holistically and say, well, I'm going to do all the painting. Then I'm going to do all the floors. Then I'm going to change out all the furniture, something along those lines on those areas. So that's just a way to kind of separate it out. If you're doing like product development, in that regards, iterative would be you would get model A, model B, model C. They look at model A and they kind of give you some feedback on it, so you take it back, and then you get to model B, another prototype, until you get to the finished product, and they say, "Yes, I'm going to take that," in those areas.
But it's not ready to use in between.
But theoretically, that's true. That's true.
Okay.
Okay. Does that kind of resonate?
Hmm.
Okay, awesome.